Hello and welcome back to Resilience in Dark Times. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about 3 tales of the solstice, the end of the year, the beginning of the new year, the return of the light. We're going to focus on an Inuit story, and then we're going to look at a Celtic myth, and then we're going to end with a Norse myth. And we'll look at these myths and what they can teach us and what we can learn from this passed on wisdom of generations of hundreds and hundreds of years. And they're kind of fun. Today in Resilience in Dark Times, 3 tales of darkness and light. You're listening to Resilience in Dark Times. I'm your companion and guide, Michael Glavin. Whatever brought you here, I'm glad you found us. This is a space for honest conversation, practical strategies, and the kind of hope that comes from facing reality together. Let's dive in. Our first story is an Inuit story, and it's called Raven Steals the Sun. And I got it from solsticelady.com. So she has a site that's dedicated to the solstice. So you know that she's curated some really great stories. So I encourage you to check it out. And so this is Raven Steals the Sun. There once was a wizard named Tupilak, and he was a very mean man. He had many magical things, but his most prized possessions were a pair of boots. These boots allowed him to take very long steps so that he could travel far across the tundra in one single movement. Tupilak did not care for other people much at all. One day he decided he did not want to be with other people anymore, so he put on his magical boots that let him take long steps. He stepped right up to the sky, took out his hunting knife, and cut a hole in the sky, which he crawled through. There was another world on the other side of the sky, which was dark and cold. But Tupilak was a pretty dark and cold fellow himself, so this world suited him just fine. He built a house for himself there. When his house was built, he went back through the hole in the sky to get his wife. He told her to pack up everything they owned so she might come with him to their new home. Well, Tupilak's wife had a few things to say about the new world. She was not happy in the constant darkness. There was no neighbors, and she was lonely. Tupilak gave her a daughter to care for to alleviate her loneliness. That's very kind of him. To solve the light issue was a bigger problem, but Tupilak was up to the challenge. He gathered up his hunting knife and 2 sturdy canvas bags, which he reinforced with his magics. Finally, he put on his magic boots that let him take long steps. He stepped over to the hole that led back to the world which he crawled through. Then he stepped right up to the sun and popped it into one of his magical bags. Using a sinew rope, he tied that bag very securely and slung it over his shoulder. As daring as that may seem, to steal the sun, Tupilak was not done yet. He stepped right over to the moon and snatched the moon into the second bag. Then Tupilak took the sun and the moon back through the hole, which shut the world off entirely from light. Meanwhile, Raven was taking a nap. He would lift his head now and then to check if it was light out, if it was time to wake. But each time he saw the darkness, so he assumed he could just go back to sleep. He didn't realize anything was wrong until people started coming around to knock on his door, calling that they were cold and starving, asking him to do something on their behalf. The raven spoke to these people and discovered what had happened. He was not exactly a kind fellow, not the sort to go out of his way to help another unless there was something in it for him. But he knew right away that this must be the work of Tupilak. The raven and Tupilak had matched wits a few times, so the raven was pleased to have a chance to defeat the evil wizard once again. He assured the people that he would regain the sun and the moon for them. He found the hole Tupilak had cut in the sky, so he decided to go and confront Tupilak. As he flew towards the hole, Raven realized, though, that he would not be able to simply confront Tupilak and expect him to hand over the prize. He would have to watch this strange new world for a time to figure out how to steal the sun and the moon back. Eventually, Raven saw Tupilak's lovely daughter. So he changed himself into a feather that floated down the stream into her drinking water. Very soon, she had a baby that was none other than the raven in disguise. I'm not sure about the logistics of that, but let's go with it. Tupilak and his wife were the proudest of grandparents, and the mother doted on this baby that was really the raven. They gave him everything he wanted. It was a pretty good life, but the baby, that was Raven, was constantly turning his gaze up to the 2 canvas bags that hung near the ceiling of the house. One day, when Tupilak was out hunting, the baby reached up for the canvas bags as if he wanted to play with them. The grandmother and mother denied this demand, trying to distract the baby, but it didn't work. The baby got very mad that he could not have his way. He started to make a fuss, then a ruckus, and then a whole heap of red-faced, mouth-open wailing that probably was audible across the tundra to Tupilak, though the wizard was very far away hunting. The women were frantic to quiet the baby, so finally they relented. When they gave the baby the bag, which contained the moon, he calmed right down. Mother and grandmother were relieved. Yet, the moment they let their guard down, the raven began to work at the sinew ties with a lot more dexterity in his fat little baby fingers than one would expect possible. In a blink of an eye, the moon was loose. It popped up to the ceiling like a helium balloon, then out the chimney and up into the sky. Tupilak saw the moon rise up, bump through the sky, and escape through the hole, back into the world. He was wearing his favorite boots, so he took a long step to try to catch the moon before, but he was too late. He returned to his home in a rage, where he demanded to know which of the women released the moon. When they told him the story and drew his attention to the baby, his rage drained as his heart softened at the sight of the little one. Tupilak was so smitten with his grandson that he could forgive him any offense. He told his wife to be more careful. Raven waited a while until Tupilak left to hunt once again, before the baby started demanding the bag containing the sun. Again, at first, his mother and grandmother resisted, doing their best to try to sidetrack his demands, to ignore his tantrums, but in the end, Tupilak's wife brought down the last canvas sack. Before she handed over to the baby, though, she tied the sinew rope secure with a second knot. Try as he might, Raven could not make his fat little baby fingers undo the double knot, so he had to make a new plan. He snuck away to where he had hidden his raven cloak, donned it, and transformed himself back into his true form. Knowing his time was short, he took the sinew cord in his beak and made for the hole between the worlds as fast as he could fly. He heard Tupilak shout far off, and without even looking over his shoulder, he knew that his old foe had taken up the chase, using those magical boots that allowed Tupilak to take such long steps. But Tupilak had been far away when he realized there was a problem, so it would take him quite a few long steps to reach the hole he had cut in the sky. He did not make it in time to prevent Raven from scooching through the hole in the sky. Raven then used his sharp beak to free the sun from its bag. The sun escaped and rose into the sky, bringing back heat and life to everything its rays touched. Tupilak was defeated, so he turned back. Tupilak does try to steal the light again every year at the same time, but that just invites the raven to come and get it back for us. The end. What did you think of that story? The story leaves me wondering, what did Raven get out of it? It says that Raven didn't do anything without some cost or something that benefited him in some way. So I wonder what his reward was for bringing back the sun and the moon, and every year bringing the light back to our world from Tupilak. What I like about this story is the trickster energy. Raven uses deceit and disguise to do something good, to bring light back to the world. I like the trickster in Native American mythology, usually a raven or sometimes a coyote. It's a good reminder to me that these disruptions, that these unexpected things I find totally annoying, that they can be liberatory, that they're vital, that they're part of life. There's this creative life energy in tricksterism, in things that turn out to not to be what they seem. When the unexpected happens, that this can allow for new opportunity and new growth. I don't know about you, but in my life, I like planning things, like stability. I like some certainty. I have my goals and expectations, and I try to meet those. But then, just in the last few months, Trickster showed up and gave me some health challenges and threw everything, upended things for me. And nothing serious, which is good, but definitely inconvenient and draining and time consuming. But I have my schedule, my podcast schedule, for instance, and try to meet these deadlines. I notice my stress level going up trying to meet these deadlines. And by accepting Trickster, by accepting, okay, life has other plans, other things come up. I have to adjust to that. I saw the irony of stressing myself out, pushing myself beyond my limits to do a podcast on resilience. Really? So I was like, okay, I need to take care of myself. I need to not release an episode every week when it's just not possible to do that. And so it's a good reminder for all of us. We have plans to see family or be in a certain place, and a snowstorm hits and cancels all the plans, cancels all the flights. Or we get sick, or someone else gets sick, or so many disruptions. And we can fight against that. We can say, no, we're going to do this anyway. And that's not wise. That is going to usually lead to disaster. And so this trickster energy, it's a good reminder that this is part of life, and that trickster is actually trying to help us in some way, that it's telling us something, that there's some other opportunities there that we're missing. There's other opportunities there that we can take advantage of if we welcome trickster. So in our personal life, it's slowing down, it's being in the moment, it's appreciating what we have, it's resetting our priorities. And in a bigger sense, authoritarianism hates trickster. Authoritarianism is about rule and law and order and killing diversity. It's against diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's very top-down. It's bureaucratic. It's sterile. Authoritarianism is sterile. There's no offspring. There's no creativity. There's no fertility there. Trickster is there to break that up, to turn things upside down, to do gender bending and rule breaking. I think about the trickster energy of Robin Hood, who would steal from the rich and give to the poor, who made fun of the church and nobles and aristocracy. I read the original stories to my sons, and Robin Hood's funny. He has this wit and this sarcasm, and he's a trickster of the woods. I think about Tuttle from the movie Brazil. I don't know if you've seen it, but I would recommend it. It's this nightmarish, dystopian, futuristic film. It's Terry Gilliam. It's a sort of dark comedy, twisted, brilliant film. And in it, there's this revolutionary plumber. He shows up and he fixes people's plumbing without filling out the forms. So he's wanted by the state, and he's considered a terrorist because he doesn't go through proper channels. And Trickster reminds us what's important. In this story, Trickster uses deceit and deception, but in order to do something good. So goes against conventions of what's supposed to be right and wrong, but does it for a higher purpose, resets our priorities, and brings vitality and creativity and energy. So as we end this year and head into winter, And maybe you're subjected to atmospheric rivers or snowstorms or illness or whatever it is. Try to see that these disruptions, although really annoying and inconvenient, and they're also a chance for us to reassess our priorities and see what's really important and get in touch with that vitality, that life, that creativity. Trickster forces us to be creative again and not complacent, not static, not stuck. Trickster is annoying, but Trickster is liberatory. Our next story is a Celtic folktale called The Holly King and the Oak King. There's many different versions of this story. This one I got online. I'll put a link for its source in the show notes. This is called The Holly King and the Oak King. The legends of the two kings, the darkness and the light. Long ago, there were two kings. Some say they were twins. Others that they were just brothers. No matter their ages, they were as different from one another as day is from night. One of the brothers was the Holly King. He wore a crown of evergreen leaves around his forehead. His domain was the cold, the ending in the dark. The Oak King, his brother, bore a wreath of oak leaves as a crown. His domain was the light, the warmth, and the plentiful plants. The brothers did not get along. Namely, each of them had their own idea on how to rule the realm. The Oak King wanted daylight and heat to rule over the world. On the other hand, the Holly King preferred the night, the cold, and the absence of regular plants. It didn't help that both men loved the same woman, the moon. Each eager to please her in their own ways, whatever the case may have been, the battle between them was inevitable. The battle. Before the brothers raised their arms against one another, the lady they both loved tried to call for a truce. She told both brothers that the best solution is for them to divide the duties. Half of the year would belong to the Oak King, and the other to the Holly King. However, the two brothers were too far discordant to agree to anything. Thus, the Oak King and the Holly King drew their swords and fought. On that day, there was an equal amount of day and light. The battle ended with the Holly King striking a mortal blow to the Oak King, with the Lord of Light and Warmth falling in blood. Instantly, the Holly King regretted slaying his brother. The lady took the body away. "Now you must rule," she said. "The whole of the land is yours." The aftermath. With the Holly King in power, the days were short and the nights were long, while the cold slowly overtook the land. Though he had won, the monarch mourned his brother. He could think of nothing else but the fallen king he had slain. It appeared as if the sun would never rise again, which threw the Holly King into despair. But then the lady came back to him, and she shared the news that would surprise the Holly King. "Your brother is not dead, your grace," she said. "The Oak King lives. He has come to take his turn ruling the land." And true to her word, there before the Holly King stood his brother. However, he was not the aged warrior that he had faced before. Instead, he was young, virile, and full of energy. He had come to claim the land, and the Holly King, overjoyed, gladly stepped down from his throne. When the Oak King took over, the days were long and the nights were short. The sun shone bright again, and the plants slowly came back to life. Animals awoke from their slumber. Men across the land would see warm days return, and nature was blooming anew. From that day onward, each of the two kings ruled one half of the realm, as it was originally intended. The end. What I like about this story is the reminder for the need for balance. As we go into the time of the Holly King, the darkness, the cold, the snow, the dying away of plants, it's easy to favor the Oak King, the sun, the warmth, the fecundity of plants and life and vitality, the warmth. But with global warming, it's really easy to see, okay, we need the balance. If it's too warm too often, that's not a good thing. But yeah, in the middle of January, it's nice in Chicago here to have a 70-degree day, but it's also really disturbing. It's not okay. With global warming, we're really reminded of the preciousness of the cold and the need for the cold and need for the seasons and need for balance. That both are important, both are necessary. Now, I live in the Midwest and I'm into native gardening and planting native plants. And one thing about native plants here is that the seeds need frost. They need to be frozen several times in order to be fertile, in order to come to life the next spring. Without the winter, without the holly time, without the darkness and bitter cold, there wouldn't be the renewal of life here in the Midwest. All the benefits of the summer, the flowers and the pollinators and all that life that is made possible by the darkness, the frost, the cold, the downtime, the fallow time. Both are necessary, both are needed. Life is that cycle between the cold darkness and the warm light. Those repeating cycles, that balance. And that's important for me to remember in my own life, and that the downtime is really important, the non-productive time, the time to snuggle up under a warm blanket. My kids got these stuffed animals that are weighted, and so you can put it on your chest like a little toddler without the crying, and it feels really nice. It's really relaxing, and so light some candles and the snuggle up and have, that sort of secure, detached from the world time is really important to charge up and to restore, so that when summer comes, then that's the connecting, vibrant, out there, outside, blooming time. Both the warmth and the light and the activity and the outward connection and the cold and the darkness and the snuggling up next to a fire. Both are really necessary. Both are important. This last myth is a mashup of a bunch of different sources. I was looking for one concise story that encapsulated this Norse myth about the sun and the moon and the wolves that chased them and Ragnarok, the end of the world. But I couldn't find it. I couldn't find anything that was suitable. I found the original sources, which were this epic poem that was really hard to read and not entertaining. Also a prose version of that, which also was not entertaining. And then references to these myths all over the place and bits and pieces of them. So this is some of the bits and pieces woven together. This is called The Wolves Who Chased the Light. Before the world learned the measure of days, before time had names, there was a great ordering. From the fire of Muspelheim and the ice of Niflheim, the gods shaped the heavens and set them in motion. They placed the stars like sparks upon a dark cloak and taught the sky how to turn. And in that turning they set two lights. The sun they named Sol, a bright-hearted maiden who drove her shining chariot across the sky. The moon they named Mani, her brother, pale and watchful, who followed her path through the night. But the gods knew this: nothing precious moves without cost. From the deep forest and the outer dark came two wolves, born of ancient hunger. The first was Skull, whose name means mockery or treachery. He ran behind the sun, jaws open, breath hot upon her heels. The second was Hades, whose name means hate. He chased the moon through the long night sky, his eyes cold with promise. The gods set these wolves upon their course not as punishment, but as balance. For in the Norse world, even light must know fear, even hope must keep moving. Each day Saul fled across the heavens, her horses lathered with sweat, the sky burning where her heels passed. Each night Mani followed his road, counting time, drawing the tides, watching the wolf's shadow stretch long behind him. And so the world learned rhythm, day and night, light and dark, chase and escape. But there were times when the people of Midgard looked up and felt unease in their bones, for as the year turned toward winter, Skoll seemed closer. The sun rode lower in the sky, her warmth weakened, shadows grew long and heavy. The old one said, "The wolf draws near." And on the darkest days, when the sun barely rose at all, the people whispered that they could hear the breathing of Skoll in the wind. Yet still the sun did not stop. This was her gift to the world, not triumph, but endurance. Long ages passed, until the signs no longer whispered, but shouted. The earth shook, the seas broke their bounds. Stars vanished from the sky, and the wolves ran faster. At Ragnarok, the doom of gods and worlds, the chase ended. Skoll caught the sun. The sky went black. Cold fell like a shroud over all things, and Hades seized the moon, snuffing out its pale light. For the first time, there was no rhythm, only silence. The gods fell, the old world burned and drowned, and the long winter of endings covered everything. It seemed like there would be no dawn. But the Norse knew this truth. Even the end is not the end. Before Skoll devoured her, Sol had given birth. Hidden from the wolf's hunger, a daughter was born, bright and unnamed, carrying the memory of warmth. And when the fires of Ragnarok faded, when the seas grew still, and green shoots rose from blackened ground, she rose. The new sun took her mother's path across the sky, not brighter, not fiercer, but steady. Fields grew again, rivers ran clear. 2 humans, Leaf and Leaf Thrasir, stepped from their shelter in the world tree and felt the warmth upon their faces. The chase began again, for balance must endure, but the light returned as it always does. And this is why, on the darkest day of the year, the Norse do not despair. They lit fires, they told stories, and they remembered. Because they knew when darkness is deepest, the wolf is closest, and the turning has already begun. The end. A couple of notes about the story. In some of my reading, the Norse believed that the morning dew was the lather from Mani's horse that had fallen to the ground, onto the grass. And so as the moon was being pulled across the sky, being chased by the wolves, and the horse and the chariot would lather up, and that would be the reason why there's morning dew. They also believed that an eclipse was the wolf catching the sun or the moon and swallowing that sun or the moon. And so they would go out and burn fires and bang things to scare the wolf away, to stop it from swallowing the sun or the moon. And if you believe in Ragnarok, the end of the world begins with this darkness of 3 years, it would be a scary thing to have the sun start to be blotted out or the moon be blotted out, because that could be a symbol of the end of the world. And so, yeah, I would be out there banging something and blowing on horns and lighting fires and screaming to make that wolf stop swallowing the sun or the moon. And what I like about this story is you have this acceptance of impermanence, that everything dies, that everything passes away, that everything is temporary. And so that makes one really appreciate what we have right now. The feeling that this is fleeting and that this world will eventually be destroyed and will go away. And so let's really get the most out of it. Let's really enjoy it. Let's really savor it and celebrate it and live fully right now. But also also because everything dies. Even the gods in this mythology die and pass away. That we're all mortal. We're all going to die. Everything's going to die. Everything's going to pass away. That makes everything precious and makes things more beautiful, more poignant. But also in this myth is regeneration and rebirth. Yes, everything's going to die and pass away, and everything's going to start over. Everything's going to be reborn. Out of the darkness is going to come light again. Out of the black soil is going to come little green shoots. And the sun, a different sun will rise again. Everything will start up all over, and it will be different, and it'll be its own thing. It'll be wonderful. But those two things, the transience and mortality and how everything will die away, and that everything will be reborn, everything will come back, that things will be reborn, that the world will go on after its destruction. And that's, as we enter the dying, as the cold and the darkness and things passing away, it's a good reminder that, savor what you have. It will be temporary. It will pass. And out of that will come new life and regeneration. And something we can't even imagine. Something that's way beyond us. So what do you think of these myths? What do you get out of them? How are they helpful? What myths do you like to turn to at this time of the year? What stories do you like? What do you draw inspiration from? What helps you be resilient in these difficult times, in these times of transition? We have these three stories. We have the trickster energy of this time of the year where things are falling apart and not going according to plan, and a reminder that that's part of vitality, that's part of life, and that's a creative force and creative energy, and that opens up possibilities. And also the need for balance, that we need both the warmth and the cold. We need the light and the dark. We need to have both of these things. And then also everything's fleeting and temporary and will die, but also there's regeneration, that things are born again and come back again in new ways. So that's what I leave you with in these, just in between the solstice and the new year, this holiday season, this time of increasing cold, but also increasing light. The cold is getting more intense, but the light is coming back. So I hope you can savor this downtime, this intimate time, this time of personal connection as much as you can. Your action item for today, even if you're in a hot climate, turn on the AC and then do this action item. The action item is to make yourself a cup of tea, get under a blanket, get a book. You can start reading the book. You can fall asleep. You can just give yourself 20 minutes, a half an hour, just to slow down, do nothing. And if you have someone, if you have a person to snuggle with, even better. If you have a dog or a cat and you can snuggle with them, awesome. If not, maybe you can get one of those weighted, snuggable, stuffed animals to snuggle with. Or a nice pillow, fuzzy pillow. So that's your action item for today. Next time, I believe it'll be next week. Next time, we're going to talk about resilience essentials. So it's sort of a best of what is most crucial. This is episode 15. Wow. We've covered a lot of different ways of cultivating resilience. So I'm going to do an episode that's just on the most essential things to do to cultivate your resilience. So that's next time on Resilience in Dark Times. And if you haven't yet, please share this podcast with a friend or a family member, or someone you think could use a little help at this time, someone who could use a little bit of connection and resilience in these dark times. Until next time. Thanks for joining us on Resilience in Dark Times. Remember, building resilience isn't a solo project. It's something we do together. If this episode helped you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and visit resiliencindarktimes.com to join our community of people who refuse to give up. Until next time, stay strong, stay connected, and keep resisting.